Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
I mean, the literal translation of midwife is to be with women.
Okay.
It's to be with woman.
Okay.
Actually, that's where the term comes from. And I believe that that's really true. Mm-hmm. When I became a midwife, people become midwives for all sorts of reasons, and everything is so personal, right?
Sure.
So it's usually, to do home birth midwifery, it has to be a calling. Mm-hmm. There's just no way it can't.
Right.
Because the amount of sacrifice that goes into it, and the amount of responsibility that you carry, mm-hmm. you wouldn't just do this for any other reason than
right.
you were brought to it.
Right.
So, for me to be a midwife, it means to be with women, to be with family, to be with babies, to connect, to serve women, to be in the. When I'm with a woman as a midwife, I'm not looking in terms of just their medical needs. Mm-hmm. I'm looking in terms of their spiritual needs, their emotional needs. Mm-hmm. What's their family? What's going on in their lives? Mm-hmm. It's such a huge part of birth, because birth is just a continuum of life, and there's just one spot, right? It's a big marking on our part of like our own. There's only probably a half a dozen in our lives that we can say if we're looking at the continuum of our own lives.
Right.
Right. There's a couple of big moments in that.
Right.
Our own birth is a huge,
sure, yeah.
moment. Usually for other people it's marriage, or maybe somebody it's their education. But mm-hmm. when they're really looking down the line, they're looking at their own birth. Mm-hmm. Then there's this long raising of children, which is then there's markings there, but they're maybe when they have children or when they go away or whatever. Right. So birth is an amazing moment in time. And then you continue. So I always look at birth like it's a continuum. So if it's a continuum, we can't just go into it in a singular way. I can't just go into it and say what's happening with your body, which is very, in the medical field, like the difference between midwifery at home mm-hmm. and the medical field, or midwifery in general, mm-hmm. in my opinion, and this is always just in my opinion, is they're looking at things in retrospective and from the sense of what can go wrong. Mm-hmm. So they look at it, they say what can go wrong, and then in retrospective they can say, oh, everything was normal. Mm-hmm. We look at it as everything's normal unless you tell us otherwise. Mm-hmm. And there's variations of normal, but I'm not going to go in there looking for the problems.
Right.
There's things that are outside of our scope of practice.
Right.
I don't think that every single person, every single baby should be born at home. I think that it has to be the choice mm-hmm. of moms. Mm-hmm. Wherever they're comfortable is where they should be.
Absolutely.
And I think that's also the beauty of home birth, is a lot of people are comfortable in their home. So as long as you have somebody that can be there with you,
right,
and help guide you. And so we look at it like it's normal unless you tell us otherwise.
Right. And even kind of when they talk about you're talking about conventional birth in a hospital, it's usually they speak of it as an emergency. Because that's really why women or people tend to go to the hospital for an emergency, right? Exactly. So if I guess I think about it when you're saying, you don't have to be born at home, but you don't have to be born in a hospital. It's also if you kind of come with the mindset of, I need to be in a hospital, you're already opening yourself to something happening, or you're already thinking something's wrong.
Whereas there's a surrender. There's a surrender to someone else's care.
Absolutely.
Because no matter what you do, and this is a huge difference between home birth and hospital births, is that even if it's the best of hospitals, even if it's a birthing center, right. That's kind of that next alternative.
Right.
There are people that work there 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. Yeah. It is human nature to claim your space. We just do it because it's human nature.
Right.
When you're at home, one of the beauties and one of the things that I love is that power dynamic goes away.
Yeah.
We're walking into your home.
Right.
We're in your space. We don't have to think about any kind of power dynamic. There's nobody behind the magic curtain saying what you're liable for or not liable for. It's about relationship. And that relationship is like our malpractice insurance. And that's what I love. That's what I love about natural birth and home birth, is that we get to take that power dynamic away. We're serving, and we get to be in that service, and that's all we're doing in that moment.
Wow.
I love that.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
What's the role of a doula when it comes to?
So a doula it's an ancient term. I believe it's a Greek. I could be wrong here, but I think doula originates from a Greek word.
Okay.
A doula is someone who is there to help a woman.
A support
person.
Okay.
Yeah. That can be done in hospital, that can be done at home. Usually if it's at home, which is my field, I can just speak from my field, we don't usually need a doula there because the midwives are being that supportive people.
Right.
But in the hospital, I really believe that women must have community and support of other women around them in birth. Regardless, if they're married to women, if they're married to men, if they're not married, if they're whatever, if they're single, that women know women. And we do tend to come in, like that's what we do naturally, right? With women, it's a very comfortable place for us. So women are going through stuff and we all just gravitate in.
Right.
So a doula, I think, is a really important support. They've kind of broken out doulas in some ways too. A lot of people are just like birth support doulas.
Okay.
But one of the things that I think is a blessing is the doulas that are willing to take on the role of doing postpartum doula, where they come in and they hold the baby so you can go, do things. Or it's such a need. It's such an unfulfilled area.
Okay.
Most people just want to be there for the birth, right? But there's this whole other piece that I think is really important, which is holding baby so mom can go shower, putting the laundry in, taking a laundry list, and helping her with that. If you have extra knowledge about stuff, coming in and giving her a massage or giving these kinds of things. That's where I think that the support is lacking in this country, particularly.
And these are
in
postpartum. This is all the
postpartum doula.
Okay.
Yeah, that whole part of birth itself. I think that we as home birth midwives really address. We see them a lot. We see them at 1 day, 3 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, or 4 weeks, depending. But in the hospital, they discharge you at day 1 or 2, and you're kind of like hanging out on your own here.
Yeah.
So that's where a postpartum doula could be it's such a blessing.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually 40 weeks.
40 weeks, okay.
But it's measured from a very odd place.
Okay.
So to standardize how we measure our pregnancies, this is like a universal method.
Mm-hmm.
You do it from the first day of your last menstrual period.
Right.
That's why everyone goes, huh? I don't get it. Because you couldn't be pregnant because 2 weeks later, you get pregnant and then you're, so that's why we measure in weeks, because it's actually 40 weeks. It truly is 10 months. Okay. It's 40 weeks and then some. First time moms, more often than not, go 41 weeks. That's the most common for first timers, is to go 10 days over due date. But yes, so we all measure. So everyone, we measure this universally, and it's really just a way to measure universally. That's a way for us to have a marking point, rather than people ovulate at all different times. They get pregnant at all different times. They don't know when they get pregnant.
Right.
But that is a way to standardize it. So 40 weeks is what it is.
Yeah, it's usually when I've gone to the doctor and someone's like, so what is the last day of your period? I'm just like,
Well, I think that's right there. You just hit a really big thing, which is that most people do not. My entire adult life, I charted my periods. I could have charts. Like I can watch what my cycles did, but certainly when you're starting to get into that place where you might be in a childbearing time, you really should chart your time. when you bleed, when your time is.
Okay.
And so many people do it on calendars. There's plenty of things now with the internet where you can actually go and they have charts.
Right.
You can
Yeah.
then see it,
On your
like
phone.
the moon charts on the phone, which is what I used to do too. Once I got the phone, I would just chart it.
Yeah.
There's apps for it too.
Exactly.
To start to chart it, because then you want to know when your first day was, how long your last day,
Right.
that kind of
And that's just mostly important, just so you know the length of time is not important for anything else. Or
I think it's important to know because we need to know our bodies and because we're so
just
disconnected.
know our cycles.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, now we use, all sorts of things and we're not always connected in. I think women need to connect into their own time. I think this is an ancient knowledge base. And if you go to almost any culture, that really honors the old culture.
Right.
Every Native American culture. If you go anywhere in the Middle East, anywhere in, South America, any culture, an old ancient culture, when women were bleeding, men consider that to be in our most power. We're in our most power. So usually they're separated from men. Orthodox still continue to do that. Right. I'll give you something relevant to this moment. Out on the where the pipeline is being
South Dakota.
in South Dakota, they don't want women on the front lines if they're bleeding. So some women started to question this. And the men kept saying, because they're at their most power then. So the women started saying, so why wouldn't you want us out there then?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want us bringing in all of that? But traditionally, women went into the red tent. Women went into the woods. Women had their own separate space because they were bleeding. Some used to say it's because of uncleanliness. But the truth is, it's even if you go back to the Bible and they talk about uncleanliness, if you go back even further, you will find it's because of our power.
Right.
We separated because we were in our power at that time. And we were in our power because we had life that was being flushed out, right? That we're born with, every child will ever have, right? We're born with those eggs already.
Right.
So if we're letting those go, there's a lot of power in us. In this culture, Western culture in general, not just the United States, it's all about how to not make it show, how to not be in it, how to not talk about it, how to not, reveal to somebody.
It's dirty.
It's just like, it interrupts.
Right, or it
interrupts life, and you don't want it to show, so you kind of stuff it with a tampon, or you stuff it up, or you do whatever, right?
Right.
So it's like the same as, how ridiculous if you think about what we've gotten to the point where if you had a cut, we put a Band-Aid on it, right? We catch the blood, we get rid of it, whatever. When it became that we didn't want to be a part of our bodies, we're not laying down, now we want to be in the military, and so, God, you want to really fight on the front lines while you're bleeding?
Yeah.
So if we have a cut, we don't shove stuff under our skin to stop the blood up here when it's supposed to come out here. We don't do it. And we started to see that more and more cancer, cervical cancer is coming, more and more inorganic cottons up against spermicides, anything with a side, going up against our cervix could never be a good thing.
Yeah.
How could that be a good thing? If you're killing things, of course you're going to start having HPV and cancer on your cervix. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
You're bathing it in something that's killing.
Yeah.
It's designed to kill.
So we just because it's a quick fix, right? It's easy. It's when we go swimming, we can,
or for birth control, that's the way.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's and everyone has to do what they're comfortable in. I totally get that, but it's also okay to mark that time and just be like, I'm going to slow down during this time.
Right.
The U.S. military has got a ton of research that they're doing. They're trying to replicate. They realize that women have a gene when we're bleeding that allow us to lose as much blood as we do and not faint and fall over and So they're like, we need that on the battlefield because men are losing that same amount in a short amount of time and they're dying. So how do we replicate that gene? And they have done it. They've replicated this gene that they can actually insert. It's all very much experimental, but I've heard several reports on it.
Oh my goodness.
We're digressing, but they're looking at it to say, we've got to get our soldiers able to lose that much blood before we can get them to the hospital the way women can. And we do it naturally.
Yeah.
We do it all the time.
Wow.
We do it while we're raising children.
Yeah.
We do it while we're working. We do it while we're physically working. And we just continue to do. We're pretty amazing.
I just wanted to comment on that too about female power and the blood that's what makes me think of like I'm just coming into the study of Orisha, you know, which I'm grateful for. I give thanks that it's come into my sphere. But I know like when you have your ancestral altar, you know that as a woman you can't go before the altar, when you're on your moon time, right? And I think about that in a way of like we have power, but when you have like it's almost like a lightning bolt, that's charging through something. If it's charging through water and you step on it, you die, right? But if it's charging through a copper rod and it's focused towards something, we get power, we get electricity, right? So I think about it as you have this power that can be used and channeled and manipulated anyway, even because there's subtle energy. So if you think about like you're on the battlefield, someone who's got this power that's surging through them, subtly, it can, it's almost like your energy is being channeled towards like destruction and death, but it's a subtle energetic way. So it's like if you're not channeling, if you're not like using that energy and focusing it, in your positive moments, but you're kind of sporadically giving it away, like I think about it in that way where it becomes even more unbalanced,
And I have to say that over time, because I studied Orisha a lot and actually was invited to be initiated at that time. But I really believe in I'm initiated, and I was initiated in a totally different form of tradition. And there were things with the Orisha, and this is just how I kind of believe that we need to always look from what perspective, like why exactly is it that women can't go before the altar?
Right.
Why? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why? Is it because there was a man at the time that didn't understand what the bleeding was? Or is it really something that's because it honors? Because if it honors, in my opinion, if it honors a woman, then it's about a woman coming before. Maybe she wants to offer her blood. Maybe she wants to be with her mothers during that time, and you want to come before your altar and bring it in. I mean, why not? So I really have a question about this, because in the women-centered traditions, it's about that choice, right? It's not because you're being ostracized away. It's not because a man said you can't come before.
Right.
It's because you wanted to separate yourself and nourish yourself and replenish yourself during your bleeding, and then go back out and to do your works. So I'm always looking at the perspective of like, well, what's the reasoning behind it? What's the reasoning? And if it's because someone was afraid of it and then it's just passed down tradition, then we need to relook.
Certainly liberate.
And that's why I'm just baffled by why, I mean, I don't know, maybe it doesn't sound very feminine, but why exactly would you want to be out on the battlefield while you're bleeding? Like, why?
You've got to prove, you've got to prove something.
That's
right?
okay, I'm alright with that, but I thought, why fight for that? Because we are really pulled in a different direction during that time.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely something to look at.
We're not equal.
Yeah.
No one's better,
Yeah, there's
no
no
one's
such
worse.
thing as equality
We're
in
not
life
equal.
in nature.
Men and women are not equal.
But we are amazing.
We are
And
amazing.
we're all unique because of because of the amazing things we individually can do and what it brings together collectively. So
Yeah. I mean, I think we have an obligation, and I believe most midwives agree with me on this. We take on apprentices. And so the apprentices that work with,
people still,
I mean,
that's awesome.
the apprentices that work with us usually need to work with us for about 3 years. And we start to train them, and they slowly start, they start with small stuff, and then they start coming to births, and then by that last year, we're doing double-handed catch, or we're supervising them catching. Then we usually suggest that they go to some kind of program as well, but there are midwifery groups that run midwifery training programs.
Okay.
That you can't get the birth experience, but you can get some of the other experience that you do know.
And then you would go out.
And here we have Massachusetts, our Massachusetts Midwives Alliance runs a once a month. They go and they learn.
Okay.
There's different teachers. We come in, we teach, and then I like that because then they have to find
Someone to work with after.
someone to work with. Yeah.
So do you think?
And you can run it simultaneously too.
Oh, okay. But
Somewhat.
if it were you, like giving suggestion, like say to me, because I'm personally interested, would you suggest to me, for example, like that I go through a program like that, or get with a midwife first and then go to the program?
The other way around. I say go start working with that program once a month on the weekends is what they've been doing traditionally. Okay. You find a program that works with that, helps you learn how to like do blood pressures and check pulses and all these kinds of things that you can come to a practice with that skill base.
Awesome. And then is that the same amount of time then? So is it still about a 3-year period?
I mean, everybody does it differently. It depends on how many births they have. So for us, that's how we feel comfortable.
The amount of births that you attend, and then once you hit like 15 or whatever, then you have this initiation or this now you're a midwife. Okay.
Sort of
something like
that. I mean, once you're done, you still kind of need to work for a while with some experienced midwife, but at least you've got the training.
Right.
So if you were going to set up your own practice, you'd still want to work with somebody that has experience, and then you're coming in.
But I mean, you could call yourself a midwife, but you're still, you're like, oh, I'm a midwife, but I've only done, X amount of births.
Yeah. Or you start working with somebody else who's more experienced, and the two of you work together.
That's wonderful to hear. Yes. Now let's say it's apprenticeships were, things of the past almost, it's like.
No, midwives, absolutely, we apprentice.
Awesome.
There's lots of different routes into midwifery. If you're interested, you could go to the North American Registry of Midwives. So some people come in through just purely apprentice trained. Okay. Others came in through schooling, and others came in through, they were previously doing medical stuff, and then they've come in. And, there's all different routes.
Okay. And you personally, how did you, what was
your
direction?
I did it where I met with a midwife. I learned, they didn't have organized class like that, but there was a midwife in New Hampshire. Her name's Ms. Elizabeth Masnick, and she did a 9-month course. And so I would go up there, was it once a week or once a month? Maybe it was twice a month, every other week. And we would learn, and she would teach us the things that we needed to do, and we would check on each other, how to do vaginal exams, how to do, we would use each other. And then I really knew that I wanted to do, I needed more experience, I needed to do experience of some sort.
Sure.
So I went to El Paso, Texas, and in El Paso, it's quite famously, and I don't know what's happening right now with Maternidad La Luz. There are two schools down there, Maternidad La Luz and Casa de Nacimiento.
Okay.
I went down there for 7 months. You live there. It's a mile from the border, so this is why things are changing now. But this is pre 9/11. This is pre,
Yeah.
So it's a birthing center. So there's 3 birthing rooms there, and we all just ate and lived and slept midwifery. So I was on 3 24-hour shifts a week. 3 24-hour shifts a week. I was on call for a 24-hour. And I schooled.
Excluding your 3 24 hours, like wow.
And then I schooled 4 hours 3 times a week. My niece is still there.
Okay. I'm sure doing great service still.
And there's other programs too. There's one in New Mexico. There's one in Florida. There's a couple of different. They're around.
Okay.
So you can go off for 7, 8, 9 months and just immerse yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And once I came back, I hooked up with a midwife that had been a midwife for 15 years. Her name was Penfield Chester. And the first year I practiced and I brought in experienced midwives with me. And then about a year in, Penfield's partners, it kind of dispersed. So then she and I worked together for a year. And then she retired and I continued on. And so here.
Now you're here, all right.
What do I think of the history?
I mean,
history is history, so it happens.
Right.
It still happens now.
But I mean, even beyond history, like, what do you think of the idea of that as a midwife and a mother? Like, how does that resonate?
It doesn't. It's really upsetting. They had wet nurses because they didn't want to be bothered with their children. They wanted somebody else to raise their children. A lot of children were raised by other people. My very first birth I ever saw was in India. I did see somebody else nursing someone else's baby. That wasn't, I mean, that does happen. So my first birth that I ever went to was in India, and I was invited along with the DD that was there, that was going. And what I really loved about it was that I could not quite tell who was the midwife, who's the auntie, who's the, so there's a woman giving birth, and she had a small baby. And her sister or sister-in-law, I can't remember, while she was in labor, nursed her baby. So that wasn't like a wet nurse where you're being hired to do it. It was a necessity. Her baby could feed while she gave birth.
Right.
When I gave birth, I had a case where I was working with a client who had a hard time producing milk. And I was there helping, and this baby was getting sick because they weren't. So I nursed the baby.
Wow.
And the baby drank and ate, and we
Wow.
got her past that point where she could then produce milk or breastfeed. And that child is 15. Like, I run into them playing soccer now. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, we know what happened. And then also, you know, women these days, they're really trying to help each other out. There's milk banks.
Right.
People donate milk.
Yeah.
They give milk to people who can't. So in that sense, I love that part of the tradition.
So as a necessity.
As a necessity, as a way to be a sister,
Yeah.
but not as a way to put your baby someplace else.
Right.
You know, I don't, that part, I don't get it. The nursing is such a bond experience. Not everybody wants to nurse, but the people that nurse and that can nurse, oh my God, there's nothing better. You're just like, what else? Our breasts are made for it.
Yeah. Is there like does it affect the baby, like when if you know, baby's nursing on their aunt and then coming back to their mother, does that affect like the child? Like, is the milk different? And
the milk would be different depending on what the person ate. I think when you're doing something like that, you know, we're resilient as humans. Babies are resilient too, so
it wouldn't cause them to not nurse with the mother.
no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about nipple confusion and people talk about that, but then you also hear about people that have gone away, had to, whatever reason, couldn't nurse their baby for 2 weeks and then suddenly they could nurse again. I mean, I think it's a two-way conversation. Yeah. Plus babies, they want it. I mean, that's what they're made for. They know they're made to drink from their mom. That's why we have breasts. Men don't have them. They don't have milk. We have milk. We have milk to feed our babies. It's not that complicated.
What do you do with it?
That's like, what we do with it. The rest of it is all just beneficial for whatever, you know? It's like, okay. But this is our moment. That's what they're here for. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have breasts. Otherwise, we could all be, as men have. They have breasts, but they don't have any milk underneath them. They don't have the glands. We have them for a reason. It's to feed our baby. We're mammals. Yeah. So it's just a pretty straightforward thing.
Common sense.
Common sense. Well, I think that there's some things that we do, like squatting. Like that's a really, you know, Western 1600s. I think it was like Henry the whoever wanted to see the baby coming out. So that was the kind of first documented history where he wanted the babies to be, because he was looking for the king and he wanted to make sure he had a boy or a girl. So he had his wives lie down. I think that's like one of the first documented where they say where women, instead of being upright or squatting or whatever they want, that's where that whole thing came from. I kind of want to preface that with, so I think that in our own practice, we use a lot of massage, we use a lot of, you know, we tell people to move in positions of whatever works, and if that means squatting works, then squatting. We encourage walking, we encourage communicating and rubbing, and all of those things are universal if allowed to just be. If you're not hooked up, or if you're not, then that's, you know, something that I think comes from all ancient cultures. Some cultures bring in more warmth. Some cultures, you know, believe in a lot of that are passed down are really because of where their environment is.
Yeah.
Men would be protecting the periphery
Right.
from animals, from the bleed. Women would be in. The midwives would stay for 30 or 40 days afterwards and steam them every day and rub them every day and oil them every day and take care and you learn how to take care of your baby by being with women. And I think that's our biggest loss. I think that's where we've lost in this culture. But in terms of practices, I do want to say, in the same spirit that I was sharing earlier about questioning about going in front of an altar when you're bleeding or not. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong. All I'm saying is, where's the origin?
Right.
If you choose it because you feel powerful and you want to stay in your power and don't want to share your power, that's beautiful.
Sure.
If you want to be in front of an altar at the front lines of a fight, if you want to be on that out with the men, then you also get that right. But in my opinion, is true with birthing positions. So lying on your back has gotten a bad rap, as far as I'm concerned.
Isn't it also too because it shrinks, like it like doesn't allow for your pelvis to?
Well, it's sort of. I mean, so in the current stream of, it was more of an empowerment thing, and that's why I say I'm hooking those two together.
Right.
If you are comfortable giving birth on your back, then you should give birth on your back. If that's where you are feeling like you want to be, please be there.
Okay.
If you want to be on your side, be on your side. If you want to squat, squat. If you want to stand, stand.
Yeah.
If you want to be on hands and knees, be on hands and knees. Sometimes babies actually need that extra space, and the most spacious is not squatting, or it is squatting, but it can be on your back with your legs up because you're squatting without having to put pressure on your legs.
Oh, I see.
Other people, the way their pelvis is, the only way they can give birth is on their hands and knees. Like you, no matter what you wanted to do, if they were comfortable, it's because of the way their pelvic inlet is, that's probably the way they need to give birth.
Right.
I think my favorite position is sideline. I find that babies just come easier that way. This generation, in my opinion, because now I've got some years to look at it, is much more empowered, much more looking at what some of the ancient practices are, much less giving over of their power to the obstetrician, to the doctor. You know, if I were to ask my mother, I would ask her about her births. We never used to talk about births, right? These days, we all ask our parents about births. We start talking to our mothers. When women come in, I say, well, how was your mother's birth? I don't know. Go talk to her. They want to talk about it. People want to talk about it. Back in my mother's time, I was like, so how was your birth? I don't know. I guess it was fine. You know, I called up Dr. Nevins and he came over. So your family doc would also go meet you at the hospital and do your birth.
Right. Okay.
But they also, at that time in the 60s, when I was born, they were using scopolamine. And scopolamine is a way to help with pain, but women would not remember their births. They'd be awake, but they don't remember them.
So it's similar to when they give you like the drip or something for your
spinal? No, that's different. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that women these days are much more empowered. The internet has empowered people. I think people are much more like, oh, really? I can choose that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've never had any access to any other option. I didn't know, you
Right.
know. So I think the world of information is bigger.
Absolutely.
So in a weird way, I think we're also bringing back in the traditions.
Yeah.
And it's much less thought of as something that should be hidden away.
Yeah.
Because everything is exposed now anyway.
Yeah, and a lot of times I know for, I'm sure for a lot of people, you know, until you hear of, you know, even just natural practices in general, you have this idea, this conception of it.
Well, usually what you see on TV.
Exactly, or hear about it from someone who has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then you actually, you know, you interact with someone who's had that experience, or, you know, now we get to see things on YouTube and Facebook, and we say, wow, like I know my first time I actually I had a visual of you know, a birth, you know, a woman in a bath, in water. I think she was in like rented water, it might have been a tub, but and then she was like almost like cooing. I don't want to call it cooing, but she was like not, you know, yelling out pain. She was like having these ecstatic moments, you know, and it was like, wow, and I'm even getting chills as I'm thinking about it. I'm just like, wow, and then this baby comes out and like the baby swam almost through the water and they grab, and I'm just like, oh my, like, how amazing is
But
that?
the fact that you can access that.
I would have never had the concept of that.
We could only access it if we were in a village, in our town, in our whatever, we get to see, right? So in ancient cultures, some of them are still, they're not accessing the internet.
Sure.
And that is still how they pass it on.
Sure.
Mother to daughter,
Right.
daughter to daughter, you know, sister to sister, aunties to aunties. And that's why the tradition of midwifery, it's from the beginning of time. I mean, I don't know when the beginning of time really was, but certainly there were always women helping women to have babies. Yeah. Men came into the picture in the history, you know, length of history, much later, and they wanted in because it was our place of power. They wanted in, and I have a lot of feelings about that because there's now people that want to become male midwives, and I have a really, really hard time with that.
Is it, I guess my thought would be almost because if you can't relate to something, like how, is it because of the relationship, like you're not a woman, you possibly couldn't experience that, or you don't know?
Actually, I don't have judgment about whether they could or couldn't. I mean, if an empathetic person is an empathetic person, then I'm good with it. Its origins came from power over dynamics.
Okay, so just like
when the obstetricians, when the obstetricians came in, it was because the midwives were taking, well, for multiple reasons. It was a Christian, there was a lot of Christianity involved, right? So according to some parts of Christianity, if you believe in the Adam and Eve story, the punishment for Eve for the apple and all that was pain in childbirth. Had she not done that, had she not explored it, had she not questioned it,
so you already have this view of like this.
Right. So this is the origin story. I mean, you have to look at origin stories. So in that origin story, and not every origin story has it, but in the one that's very Anglo-Saxon kind of origin story. So when the midwives, who they then translated to say were witches, the reason they said that they were witches, I mean, they were the very first person that went in the burning times for the midwives, the very first people. First they went to midwives, then they moved it down the line, you know, as best as they could to every woman. There are 9 million women documented that died during the burning times. That's documented. That's more than slavery. Not more than slavery. I don't know. It's documented.
It's a huge number.
And 6 million died in the Holocaust. So if you think about the women, we were very persecuted. The midwives were the first ones. And they were the healers. They were the ones that were taking the pain away from women. Yeah. That was anti-Christian. Yeah. So the men came in because A, there was a financial thing. B, there was a power over. Because now, if men could control it, they could control it. They could control when women, they could control what we were doing. So I have an issue. I'm not saying every OB is coming in with that intention, because they're not. I have done births for beautiful families where the male is an OB, right. And you know, or the father is a doctor, mother is a midwife. Yeah. It's unintentional. I'm just looking at origin story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So I really believe that as we become more connected to our bodies, we can see birth as a healing. Mm-hmm. For many women that have cramps and difficulty prior to having babies, they will no longer have cramps. They will no longer have that scar tissue that might be causing cramps after they have babies. Because the stretch has happened, then it comes back, and then they don't have to have it. Some women psychologically and emotionally heal through birth, especially women who have been sexually abused or have any kind of abuse history. You can really heal through birth because there's every element of it. You know, there's that feeling of being out of control, but being able to harness that. Mm-hmm. There's the element of something coming out of you rather than in you. There's so many subtle aspects of birth that I really believe can be a healing. Yeah. If you're in the right environment to do that. Yeah. So, like, physiologically, your belly, your uterus goes back to its pre-pregnancy size by 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
6 weeks. They say 6 weeks, but it's, let's call it 6 weeks.
Okay, but like
it's
4 to 6
individual.
weeks in there. Okay.
Yeah, 6 weeks. We'll call it 6 weeks.
Okay.
Belly is a totally different thing, right? So
okay.
you've got your uterus, which is about the size of your fist.
Right.
It sits behind your pubic bone.
Right.
You can't even feel it outside of somebody who was trained to be able to reach it and find it. Then it gets large enough to hold a baby.
Right.
When you give birth, it immediately shrinks down. It's below your belly button. It comes all the way down. The muscle just... And then over time, as you nurse, just over time, it tones it,
Right.
and then it brings it down.
Right.
I really talk, when I talk to our clients, I say that postpartum, I think there's a misconception about this after pregnancy time. Hollywood has just really not done us a service. Women are giving birth, they're out there with their newborns, they're as thin as hell, they're starving themselves to get back to where they were.
Yeah.
I believe it takes 10 weeks, right? It takes 10 months for us to grow a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need to see the healing of our bodies of postpartum to be a year. I don't think that anyone should have any misconception that they're going to get their body back. First of all, our bodies never return to the way they were. They don't. The hips, after they make that initial move the first time, they have to make space. There's a hormone called relaxin that allows the bones to actually move and fit if this is the pelvis. They don't go back.
So they stay in this kind of
They stay out. So instead of being like this, maybe you're more straight before you have a baby. Afterwards, you have a little curve. You will always have that. Your body will never, ever, ever look different. You can look wonderful, but it will not be exactly the same.
Okay.
I just really encourage women to take the pressure off of themselves and think of your postpartum healing to be a year to 14 months or a year to 18 months even. Like, give yourself the time to nurse and to nourish, to nurse and to nourish. And don't just get right back to this like everything is as usual, because it's not.
Yeah.
Everything isn't as usual. You've just grown a human being and a whole other organ. If you think about it, the placenta is like this, usually about this big.
Okay.
You've grown a whole other organ. You have an internal wound that has to heal up. All those capillaries are closing.
Right.
If you had something that was sitting here and exchanging, and you had a scab, it takes time.
Yeah.
You just have to allow your body to do that. So to have an expectation, I think in this culture is 6 weeks and you gotta be back, 12 weeks and it's all done. It's not.
Yeah.
Take the time.
And by hastening it, we're making it worse.
Oh, we're just hurting our overall longevity of health when we do that. No, but there's if you don't, so in the beginning it's just a process, it's a learning process. I think people think there's a misconception that if you're going to breastfeed, you're just going to put the baby on the breast and all it's going to be,
They'll latch on.
they'll just latch on.
Right.
But there's a way, you have to learn it, just like everything else, and the baby has to get to know you, and you have to get to know the baby, and the baby's mouth, and the size of your breasts, or your nipples. I mean, there's so many different factors, and it's awkward in the beginning, because you've never done it before.
Right.
Like, once you have your second one, or third one, or whatever, it's just like, oh, whatever, you know? But in the beginning, you want to make sure you're not in pain, because women can really be in pain, and it can cause a longer-term issue around mastitis and just blocked ducts and things like that. So working with breastfeeding and teaching how to do it properly. It's proper. I don't want to say there's a bad in terms of positioning. You got to find your positions. But I usually talk about introducing a new position later, like get one down that you know the food exchange is happening, and then start to work on some of the other positions, and then make sure that you're not in pain, and women can really struggle with it. So
it's really just for the person.
Well, I think it goes into a bigger conversation, which is having conversations about your body changing. Changes happen. So right from the start, women have sensitive breasts. They start to feel like they're a little fuller, they're a little more sensitive. And I think whoever your partner is, you just need to keep conversing with them what's going on. You know, certainly, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't continue to have sex. It doesn't mean that you can't continue. Many people who, you know, in their intimacy might even suck on breasts. You might get some milk or colostrum, not milk, but colostrum. So just educating and communicating and respecting, and I don't think there's anything specific.
I guess that was my next.
Listen, everything has its, like, I can say that, and I guarantee you there's going to be somebody that said, do you know what, when I had sex, you know, my doctor told me not to have sex. There's always something out there.
Yeah.
If all is well, you continue to have sex. Matter of fact, what brings in baby also will bring baby out later. So having that same, you know, sometimes people are having sex and they might get a little bloody show, or they might feel a little contraction or something. You just have to be aware of that. But absolutely.
But it shouldn't be scared. Oh, I've hurt the baby or some things I see.
No. There's tons of barrier between you and baby.
Okay. Because I've heard that before. Oh, you can hurt me.
No.
Okay.
What can happen is, if in an orgasm you start to contract, then sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to miscarry, or am I going to? So that's a bigger scare. But that's only if a baby hasn't attached in. If a baby is attached in, you should still be fine.
Okay, so I guess it would be like if your midwife or your doctor sees something going on, they'll let you know, like maybe.
Or if you start to have a little bit of spotting or something, we'll talk about, like, well, did you have sex? Did it go on? Yeah, I mean, if somebody were going into premature labor on a regular basis and felt like they were contracting early on, it would be indicated to not stimulate your uterus any more than it already is doing on its own. So you would not want to do that. But in general, most of humanity can continue to have sex. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I think the body image part starts in pregnancy. So a lot of women, they can go either way. They can either be like really upset when they think about how much weight they're gaining, right? So average weight gain is somewhere between 25 and 35. I mean, I would really say 25 to 40, but 25 to 35 is average weight gain. So some women are just like, they're just not comfortable. They're feeling like, oh my God, where's my body going? My body's getting taken over. There's so many different concepts. I personally loved it. I was like, dude, I do not have to think about my body right now, because what else are you going to do? You got to eat. You're pregnant. It's just, I think pregnancy is beautiful. Like, this is just not, freeze you up. Don't even have to think about it. Postpartum, a lot of women struggle with it. They just don't feel right in their body yet. And that's that same concept of like doing what you feel is comfortable. So if you think that postpartum is a year, then you're going to be a lot more forgiving of yourself if your body feels out of whack. If your body doesn't, if you feel like you're, nursing helps also to lose weight and get your muscle tone back. It's all very beneficial. So do what you do. You have to feed, you have to drink, you have to eat in order to be able to feed your baby. If you can look at it in that way, you're just serving this little one that you've chosen to bring in. So if you're serving this little one, then it takes the pressure off of you and societal's view of you.
And it allows you, I know, like it sounds like the natural things, the things that you were naturally supposed to do, are the best things to help you with body image.
Absolutely.
And especially if you set your mind to, okay, a year is when you give myself to kind of maybe feel, better back to my normal self, or or get used to my new self. Then it exactly doesn't make you feel like, okay, well, 6 months has gone by and my doctor said 4 months I should be feeling better. Something's wrong with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then when you start getting fresh air and sunshine and walking, and you start to just incorporate that in your life again, your body you start to feel good about yourself again.
Right, absolutely.
And your view of breastfeeding has a lot to do with that too. Well, I think it starts before, so it's not just when you have contractions. I think community is amazingly important. Every woman has their own birthing, though they may not want to have tons of people there. I think having one or two women there is awesome. There's something called social dystocia. If you have a whole group of people there, too many people, then you feel like you need to serve or perform for them. So I think there's something also about that that's aware of. But I think community is very important. One of the ways that in this culture we can do it is we can set up ways for people to bring food afterwards and just kind of come in, clean, do some dishes or whatever, help out in that way, and then leave, like do short in and outs. I love when if you're connected with your parents or an auntie or a sister or somebody, that they come in afterwards, because that's really when you need the help. When you're most women in this culture, they don't share right away when they're having contractions. At least we don't encourage them to, because it brings in way too much energy.
Okay.
You might say, hey, I'm starting in early labor, or that expectation piece comes out, like, oh, I've just told them I'm in labor and I'm still in labor, or my labor has stalled, or I'm taking a nap, or you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So it's kind of nice. A lot of people choose to just tell after, when it's all said and done. They have their people there, but then just be done.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we have to stimulate our babes, we have to stimulate them, and one way to do that, we're pretty blessed, but we don't live in it. If we lived in a city, it's a lot more challenging, right?
Absolutely.
Bringing them to the park, bringing them out, they're really in a different environment. My kids, we live out, we've got a yard or whatever, you can be outside a lot. So I think you have to take what you've got and try to do the best you can with it. But if preferred, the kids do not need technology and all of that. They need to just be out. They need to be exploring and problem solving. And the way to do that is to go down pathways that, and I'm not into the sterilization of babes. I think that as children, they need to get in the dirt, they need to get colds, they need to get
strengthens
they have to do it,
that's such a misconception because people think, oh, I need to give my kid toys and I need to, stimulate them. They need constant stimulation. And it's like,
we're overstimulated as a society. I actually feel for my kids. I do, because we can restrict all we want. Just pretend I say, no computer, no TV, no whatever. You can do the best you can. But the minute you step out your door, everybody else has it.
Right.
You are fighting this thing all the time. I really feel for them. I do, because there's some things that are, really lovely, right? You can go to the internet instead of we had books of encyclopedias in my house, which I think are cool, but, so I'm not saying all technology is bad. I'm not trying to say that, but the pressure on them is more than the pressure was on us. We went to recess 3-4 times a day. In high school, we were allowed an hour for lunch, of which there was a courtyard, and you went outside in the grass and we'd throw the frisbee. And our kids can't even leave the schools now.
I'm young and I remember being able to, do recess. I can't imagine not having that as a child. Wow.
They have 1 or 2 in grammar school, and they hit middle school and they can't go outside at all. There's no space for that. And high school either. There's courtyards, but they need an adult to be there, and no adult will be out there. So the kids don't do out there. They go on their phones now. They can they're allowed during lunch to check out their videos and check their thing or whatever. Rather than, we didn't have that. I really feel for them. The pressure is on.
Yeah, and almost I think even
overstimmed.
It creates that expectation as a child that's the standard that you're set at, this overstimulated state, to feel normal. Absolutely. It's almost like that's the least you need to get, whatever you're getting as a baby.
They're stressed.
Yeah.
Our teenagers and stuff are stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it even comes from the birthing practices, I'm sure, that we are, you know.
Sure, yeah, but no, I think they're stressed because they're overstimulated. They're overstimulated. I really feel for them.
Yeah.
I do. I feel for them. Instead of being angry, I just feel for them because there's no way to fight this wave.
Yeah.
You cannot fight this wave.
Yeah.
I think our kids, when we're older, they're gonna, my midwifery partner talked about this, and I really agree with this too. I think our kids, like later on, they're gonna revolt. And you know what their revolution is gonna be?
What's that?
They're gonna go into the woods without their phones. They're gonna be like, we don't wanna be in touch. That's gonna be the revolution. That wasn't even a thought of as a revolution, but at some point they're just gonna be like, we don't want to be tracked all the time.
That disconnect is when they say the
That's
revolution will be televised, it's like, it's
televised,
because
yeah.
you're totally disconnected and the revolution's happening.
I would welcome that.
Yeah, I feel that too. Yeah.
Because my kids are just as pulled. I honestly feel that so abortion is really physically women can heal. Physically they can heal. We're very resilient.
Okay.
And they've gotten so much more refined in the way that, depending on what stage of pregnancy they're in.
Okay.
If it's an early abortion, they can just help to create contractions that the body will expel.
Okay.
So it's emotionally where women have to forgive themselves if they've had an abortion.
Right.
Women have to forgive themselves and then embrace that they're choosing something different.
Yeah.
And that's true with miscarriage too. There's such a grieving. Women, when they miscarriage, they want that baby, and they have to find a way to come back into that surrender and then start anew each time.
Right.
So in terms of how it affects, that would be it's
See
more
emotion.
emotionally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more emotionally, and yeah.
Okay. And for someone who has experienced abortion or miscarriage, just, you know, it doesn't have to be some, you know, well thought out answer, but what would you maybe say to them that can encourage that healing, or what advice could you give to them, especially if, you know, a new mother, she's pregnant now and it's the first child she wants, but she's scared, I've had a miscarriage already, or wow, what if I have a baby and it comes out, mentally ill because of, my karma, because what could you speak to that?
So miscarriage and abortion are very two different things. So,
Absolutely.
So in terms of, again, the empowerment issue, abortion might have been circumstances,
Right.
it might have been a number of things, but often is a choice, right? So it's a choice that's what you had to do in that moment. So again, the forgiveness of self in that moment is the only really salvation through that.
That's the real essence.
It really is. You have finding that place of acceptance and forgiveness for what you chose in the moment that you chose, knowing, Don Miguel Ruiz,
Yes,
he wrote the
yes.
4 Agreements. Like first book, he talks about being impeccable with your word,
Mm-hmm.
and that's word towards self,
Mm-hmm.
like ahimsa.
Mm-hmm.
Word towards how you speak towards yourself, harm that you do towards yourself
Right.
or others, right?
Right.
Also, the 4th agreement is do the best you can with what you've got. Always do the best you can, and know that you've always done the best you can.
Right.
So in the circumstance of either miscarriage or abortion, you have to forgive yourself to know that you did the best you can with the circumstances that you had in that
Right.
moment.
Right.
That's how you're going to be able to move forward to say, and now I'm here.
Right.
I was there. I'm not proud of where it was, but it was what I needed to do. I did what I could with the circumstances I have, which is ultimately why, in my opinion, forgiveness can happen. With miscarriage, it's a little bit different because it feels out of your control.
Right.
Right? So what we do with women that have had previous miscarriages is we really work with the control factor part of them. The attachment. A lot of women will talk about not being able to attach to their pregnancy until after 12 weeks or after
Like
that magical
emotionally,
moment.
or-
Yes.
Okay.
Until after that magical moment of when they miscarried the last time.
Okay.
So one of the ways, I've had clients who didn't want to do ultrasounds, do not really want to, whatever. But I'll say, let's know what we know. So doing an ultrasound in that time might be the appropriate thing to do, because then you can assure yourself, right? Doing things preliminarily, knowing that you miscarried before, what can I do differently before I get pregnant again to really help shore up my health and body? Find out what's going on. So a lot of it with miscarriage is about finding the place of control again, and being able to knowledge, right? You know, checking more often, all sorts of things like that.
So you're not like psyching yourself up for like you were saying, like, oh, at 12 weeks it happened, and I'm expecting, you know, like that. Okay.
Just more, you know, allowing yourself, like I'll say to women, come in whenever, like, let's make an appointment anytime you want. I know we're not supposed to see you for 4 weeks, but if you're feeling all of a sudden nervous and you need to know, call me. Call me, let me know, let's go listen. Come on, let's double check. We'll just be sure.
Be safe.
You know, or let's go and do that ultrasound just so you know, you can see, you can visualize, you see you're there. So with abortion, it's all about forgiveness. It's about finding, just forgiving and knowing that that was what you had to choose at that time. Whether you had to or not, it's what you chose. It's all you can do. It's where it is.
For sure. And that's true. And also that, so that we don't kind of impart that energy onto our children. So we don't look at them like, you know, like some case, some story, like, oh, you have to constantly apologize, or, you know, whatever happens is your fault now, because, you know, that blame. Okay.
So, women, I mean, sometimes women still get pregnant and they're surprised that they get pregnant. And that fear might come in. I mean, in the beginning, thank God we're not mice. You know, we're not replicating every 3 weeks. You've got 10 months, right, to get ready and get used to this idea. Then, all you have to do is really, having a child is not very costly when you think about having a child. Those first couple of years, it's really like about, especially that first year, if you can feed mom, you're feeding baby. I mean, I'm not really sure what else you need. I mean, when I talk about essentials, there's probably 1 or 2 things that I'd say, oh, that's probably the most convenient thing. You know, some way to hold your baby, like a wrap, is an essential. That's an old tradition. I mean, you talked about traditions and I talked about squatting. We've really embraced that as a culture here.
Those the front wraps.
The back wraps. There's like 25 million companies out there now. Like back even when I gave birth 15 years ago, there weren't that many. 2 or 3 different kinds. Now it's like everybody knows they should carry the baby. So there's a couple of things, and there's an abundance, especially this country. There's an abundance of stuff. People pass it on all the time. Now there's Facebook groups, free stuff, things that you can exchange, things that you want. We need to just connect with each other, and as we're connecting, we just pass along what we had. Babies are not that expensive then. I mean, it gets a little more expensive later, only because of choice.
This isn't something where you're feeling like, oh my God, I don't have any money, I can't feed my child. You need to be able to feed your child. If you're making a choice to have a baby, you need to know that you can feed yourself and then later feed your child. Those are if you don't have that, I think you really need to rethink whether you should have a baby. If you don't think you can feed yourself, it's not really fair to bring somebody else in. This is my personal opinion. Lots of people have babies. But I think most of us, we just reprioritize, right? Just figure out a way. Absolutely. So that's what I'd say to someone who's scared. Figure out your priorities and what you can and can't do. If you can feed yourself, you can feed a baby. You got 2 years. The growing stage and the after stage. At least you've got 2 years to
kind of get your
ducks in a row.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
You know, do it. Massaging, I really believe in baby massage. Imola McClure, she wrote like the first great book on it, and it's still to this day probably the #1 book. It's been revised. It's just called Infant Massage because of that connection. Those are connected through Indian culture and Swedish, and she kind of incorporated some of the others, but just connecting with your baby, massaging, oiling. We talk to our clients about oiling up your baby every day. Some other cultures like to just whisper God's name in the ear. So the very first thing that's said is God's name. or heard is God's name. So it has to be an individual thing. I don't know what I can say as a culture that we can do.
But do you do think that some sort of ritual is a good thing? Is a positive thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. I totally support it.
Is
I
there-
do, because I've seen it work with women. I think in tincture form is really a great way for people to work with it. Sometimes some women, they'll do all other medications and nothing works, but that you're trying to grow a baby. If that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. Sometimes women in labor will also smoke a little bit. It's an oxytocin. It's a very helpful thing.
Right.
I think that it's an individual thing. And then I've done births for people who smoke on a daily basis, and I do not see a difference in their placenta.
Okay.
So that's where I think I would see when people are smoking cigarettes or something, you can see it in their placenta. It's not as strong.
Okay.
But I examined placentas of women that are smoking, and I do not see a difference in terms of smoking. So I think it's an individual thing. But certainly for nausea, I support it.
Yeah. I had a friend who I had befriended her when she was like 8 months pregnant, and so I got to question her at that point, and she was telling me that, she was like, oh, I'm not, smoking marijuana now. I don't really feel like I need it. She wasn't much of a smoker, but she was telling me that, her fiance at the time smoked a lot of cannabis, and she was saying like she would just have like days where her nausea was just so bad. They would give her, pills, and at first she tried them, but her husband didn't want her to use, pharmaceuticals for their baby, and he's from Jamaica, and they have mothers who are using ganja there, and she said that like that was the only thing that worked for her. She said she would drink some tea, sometimes she would take a few pulls, and it actually got her through it, even allowed her to eat.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
She couldn't, because she couldn't, she didn't want to eat.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Awesome. But would you say that there's like a period of time, like a certain, during this period you would recommend it versus this period? Okay. Just any time that it's necessary.
So if it's in the hospital, insurance is covering it because it's under a midwife in the hospital. Certified nurse midwife is under the doctor's purview.
Okay.
So
is that included in like birthing centers too? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Okay.
Any certified nurse midwife, except they're now passing laws now where they can practice independently, but they sort of still need a doctor behind them.
So on call, or just like a doctor on call or something?
An OBGYN.
Oh, okay.
So it's state to state. Okay. So it's a legal thing, state to state. Some states allow, some states for home birth. So that's covered within insurance.
Okay.
Home birth care is also a very state in California. It's pretty, it goes like from $5,000 to $7,000, and that's going to be out of pocket.
Is that for how that
complete care? That's all prenatal birth over. I've heard of higher numbers. They do try to do insurance at times. I don't know what it is. Everything's state to state. Around here in this area, it's a sliding scale, 38 to 5,000, somewhere in there. People do sliding scales. That's what we charge.
Okay.
If people can't afford, we do barter for up to a certain percentage of it. And most midwives are, I don't know. I think other midwives are open to it.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay.
Like in Vermont, they license midwives. So their Vermont Medicaid covers home birth. Okay. But then the midwives only get paid about $1,000, which isn't very much for all the care that they give. So it's like a challenging, everyone's still working it out.
And that includes, you're saying all of it, so that includes
all of it, prenatal care, the birth, and postpartum.
Okay. And usually how long after postpartum is a midwife usually with you?
We see them at 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, 2 or 3 weeks, and 6 weeks.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Every stage is different of what they can and can't do.
And you don't have, like, for me, if I were to meet with you as my midwife, do I have to as well have a doctor?
We want you to have medical care in case you transport into the hospital, in case we had to transport.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're stuck with a $100,000 bill in the hospital because you're not insured. So we would hook you up. We've developed relationships over, very conscious relationships over time around here. Now, I'm telling you, in Connecticut, it's not as common. Although there is a practice in the Connecticut area, that has nurse midwives that do home births, I think, that do both.
Okay.
Because they have a different law. But here, over the 20 plus years, I've just sat and worked with practices. So now we have coverage in Greenfield, Northampton, and in Springfield.
Okay.
Or Holyoke in Springfield. So our buffers are the nurse midwives that are in the practice. We connect with the nurse midwives if there's any issues, they can talk to the doc about it. But then it's co-care. So we ask our clients to see them once a trimester.
Okay.
They do all their lab work through there. They can do an ultrasound through there, or any testing if they wanted to. They can do all of that through there. And then if we transport, we're not going in through the ER. We're going straight up. They've got a chart on. They've got all the information. Then we continue to go to the hospital with, and then act as the advocates in the hospital. And then we do the postpartum care again.
Wow.
So it's a way for continuity of care.
That's great.
Yeah.
And just to kind of compare, if you were to be in like a birthing center, it would be kind of like the same.
Exactly the same, except that if there were complications with your birth, you'd go over to the hospital. Birthing centers have to be located right near hospitals.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow, that's great.
I don't know, because around here, there's nothing that I know of. The reason we do a sliding scale is to allow for that, so that for people that can't afford as much, they can do it, or extended payment plans. It's really different. Like I know in the Amish community, they don't charge as much. I don't know where they're not getting funded in that same way. I really don't know how. I don't know of any organizations. I know there's an organization. It would take some time to look for grants to do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know of anything offhand.
Okay, no worries. Well, it's great to know that someone like you is out there who's open to people with bartering.
Absolutely,
and Medicare covers some of it, and all these
I've had so many different kinds of things. Like, especially like their husband comes and does the fall cleanup, or I had somebody who got our garden ready. He's a farmer and he was into it. He really loved it. He loved coming out. He prepared, he pulled weeds and got the garden ready for us to plant. And I just took what that would be. He charged per hour. I was like, whatever it is at the end, you can do that. Our website was built by somebody who we did 2 of their babies. You just do exchanges, because that's, I love bartering. I think bartering is really cool. I don't know about other practices. I don't know if everybody does.
Sounds good that I'm sure other people like-minded like you are out there, and that's great that even you, that are open. So that's beautiful.
I have an amazing quilt on my bed. That's like an African quilt that was the barter, and those kinds of things reminding me.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, and it almost feels special to you.
It feels so good.
It's like that's someone's direct work. Like I don't need the bills. You're giving me your direct energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
But we also need to get paid. We're professionals.
Of course. But that the element of that, if I don't have the last $500, but I can do this
Absolutely.
for you. That's wonderful. So what are some ways that I know that you are here at the River Valley Midwives? What are there some ways that people can get in contact with you?
Website is we're on the webs. We're in our phone numbers are all listed. All our information is there.
Okay.
Facebook, our information is there.
Awesome.
I don't have an Instagram, but maybe I'll put an Instagram.
Have a lot of awesome pictures of babies.
That's what we do on the River Valley Midwives. I always put the babies up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys can check that out there, and the website is rivervalleymidwives.com.
Yep.
Okay, and then the email is rivervalleymidwives@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. So,
yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jharna. It was really awesome to sit with you.
To sit with you as well.
And this will be information for people that really need it. I know I've needed it, so it's been educational for me.
I think most midwives are always they'll talk to you if you have questions. So you just make the inquiries, Don't just settle for what you think you have to have.
Right. You have an option, right?
You have an option, absolutely, and most people are willing to extend.
Awesome.
I know we are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking out this first session on the Diaspora platform with Jharna, Harvey, Ahmai. She was awesome. If you checked out the whole session, she just really brought a lot of things home that I know I didn't know. And I know a lot of people, even mothers who have already given birth to children, or fathers who have witnessed birth or been a part of it, probably don't know about either. So I really hope that it informed you, that perhaps it, helped you formulate opinion about natural birth, about midwifery, about doulas, about ways that you can be supportive to new mothers, to women who are pregnant, and even just be support to a child around you. But I just want to say, stick around after this. I found this amazing YouTube video of a woman who's, she's giving birth to her first baby, and it's a water birth, and it's beautiful. And so if you've never seen one, it will be jaw-dropping for you to watch. And just check it out. And also, please come back and check out our next video that we'll be posting soon. I'm going to be sitting down with Hunter Torin, and we're going to be talking about somatic therapy, about emotions. So I know a lot of people, we've been traumatized, we've been, we've grieved, we've been hurt, and we need to talk about that. We need to talk about ways to deal with it, to cope with it, and really the landscape, or what the picture of, this particular pain, or this particular trauma, or this particular tension that's manifested in you physically, what it's doing, what it looks like, and how it's affecting you truly. So check that out, coming soon, but definitely watch this video. And thank you so much for sticking around. Thanks to Jharna. And again, keep loving your heart.
Oh yeah.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, this
Oh my gosh, this feels so much better. Like, takes pressure off.
good.
Checking the cervix for the second time today. He's there. I'm looking at him. Well. You sure you can't grab him?
Get him out to the ears and we'll help. How's that?
It's the hardest part.
No, I can't. That was a joke.
There it is. There it is. Push it. Push it. Don't stop.
Hey, baby, you got this. Oh, yeah. That's it, baby. That's it, baby. That's it, baby. That's it. Keep going. Keep going.
There he is. There he is. Push him. You got it. You got it. He's out. He's out.
You got it, baby.
He's out. He's out.
You got it.
You got it.
You got it. You got it.
Got it to the ears, baby girl.
You got it.
Come on, you got it. Push it.
Keep going.
Push it.
Keep going. Keep going,
There
baby.
he is.
Come on.
There he is.
One good push.
Oh my God.
One under and one over.
Keep pushing, baby. Keep pushing. Keep pushing.
These are big.
Keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Keep push. Keep pushing.
Keep pushing.
Oh.
Baby boy. Baby boy.
Listen to that cry.
Baby
3 o'clock.
boy.
He was born at 3 o'clock, y'all. 3 o'clock on the dot.
Hey boy. Hey, what's up?
You did it, beautiful. You did it.
Oh, hey boy.
Yeah, that's so big. Oh.
Oh, there it is.
Check out this one. She's looking like, really? What's going on over there? Right? And why is my mom in the trouble?
I'm so happy you guys did this, young
Isaiah.
She's about to tie my tubes right now. Hey Nunu, you are a woman.